Exciting news on the horizon for Distant Worlds 2. We're not on the horizon, it's actually here. If you're part of the open beta for Distant Worlds 2, there's you've got some goodies now that you can sort of start to play with. And if you have been on the periphery for a little while with the game and haven't really sort of got into it, it may be a time to have a look at it again. I keep on saying this every few months, but anyway, there's some. This is it's got one of the aspects that I've been really waiting for a long time, have now been introduced into at least this beta version of the game, which means it'll be coming fairly soon. Now, there are some issues with this. I'll go through what the actual issues are. So it is a beta. There's likely to be bugs, and this certainly does have a few bugs. Some of the changes don't go far enough, in my opinion, but they're certainly heading in the right direction. So the big one, the big one in through here, if we go to the Distant Worlds 2 page and then go to the Community Hub for it, you'll notice that along the top here, we've now got Workshop. And so there's not very many mods in there at the moment, but this will then start to increase, I would hope. And so if you are a modder, now's the time to probably jump into Distant Worlds 2, because you'll be able to change the XML files, which are fairly easy to edit, and then start to build your own mods. There's only a handful at this point in time. I've subscribed into here to the diverse system names because it was just a simple mod that just changed the names of the systems. I'm not wanting to get anything too overwhelming for my actual modding, for my version of the game, because I do want to record tutorials and things like this fairly soon. Now that we've got the workshop support, this for me was a big important change that had to come for the game, just for its longevity, and it's now here, so it's exciting. It's so exciting that we've actually now got this one in through this side. But there's some big ones, like Excel, for example, is a fairly large mod that sort of changes the tech tree components, like weapons, engines, reactors, sensors, etc. There's a lot you can do with the game, a lot of modding. I'm sure there'll be rebalance mods as well. I'm sure that they will come soon. Anyway, early days at this point in time, but I wanted to just let you know that Workshop was here. All you need to do is to actually sort of bring a mod in, is just to subscribe to it. Now, I won't subscribe to this one in here just yet, but just as an example, like there'll be more and more coming. So you just click on the subscribe button. That will then load it into your game. By the way, if you want to get into the beta and you aren't involved in the beta, just go to your library. Just go to Distant Worlds 2 on the side of your library. Right click, go to Properties, go to Betas, and then go to the drop down and just choose the first of the betas that shows up. I've got a few extra things in here because I'm on the actual beta program for the game, but this is there will be an open beta available for you, and with whatever number it happens to be at that point in time. I would recommend that you do this anyway, unless you are unless you've got technical problems with the game, in which case just go back to the none version. But anyway, if you don't have the problems, and I don't have the problems, so just go to beta in through there. All right, let's get into the game. All right, so what we've got here is version 1.1.0.3, which is the beta version of the game, and we can look across at modifications. And so just to round this one off, you can then click on the name itself, and then look at enable or disable. You can sort of enable them or disable them in through there, or you can just click onto here to enable or disable. Now, it does sort of say that you may have to restart the game just to have the mods take effect, depending on how big the mods actually are. Also, there is actually a way of ordering the mods. Now, the one thing it doesn't tell you, and I'm not sure which one it is, sorry, so I can't give definitive information, but if you've got two mods that are impacting the same XML files, I don't know what takes priority, the ones above or the ones below. So that's a big unknown for me. Hopefully they'll actually clarify that at some point as to what the priority is. Quite often with games, it's the loading below that takes priority, but with some games they actually do it the opposite way, so that you can have your most important mods at the top. Anyway, I'm not sure how that one actually does work, but eventually that load order will be important, and they will need to specify how that one actually does work. Anyway, that's the mods. So with that done, let's just start up a new game. Now, there's another change in here as well, which is sort of interesting, and I like it actually. I like it. I'll just keep on sort of rattling through. When we get to this screen in here, when you do a start with an auto-generated number of empires, after you start the game, what it will then go and do is it will actually then go and fill this in for you as to what the settings actually were based on what you had chosen. And so you can sort of see through here that in the last one that I played with a couple of them were higher level than what I was, the Teekans, the Mortallans, Harkonish. There's an expanding Boscaran in through there as well. And so we get to sort of see what the settings were. There's only one Boscaran in the whole group. So this would be a fairly safe and friendly game. So you can always come back and save your game, have a quick look to see, have I got enough dangerous empires to make it interesting or not? You can't change it after it starts, but you can at least have a look and then just go back in. And so, by the way, at the very, very start of this, of the whole process, is a random seed, but now it's easy to find the random seed in the game as well. So if you're thinking, okay, I like what I've got, I just don't like the empires that are around me, what you can do is just come back into the game, start the game, and then just come back with the random seed, and then use that to then go back and build another game with different sorts of a team essentially that comes into here. Here we go, the Harkonish, back into this particular side. Now, one thing I don't like about the game, it's only a minor point, is that it doesn't start on pause. You've got to actually actively pause it, and I don't know why it doesn't. It's been one of these things that's bothered me ever since the game came out. It really should start on pause, because if you're playing on any sort of higher difficulty level, you are going to have to start on pause anyway to then just micromanage everything just for a little while, get everything set up the way that you need it, and then let the game start to run forward. You don't want it starting off on its own. So many of these games do that, and I don't know why. I don't know what the benefit is of having the game run forward. Anyway, minor point, but I wish there was a setting to stop the pausing of the actual game itself. Look, there may be a setting in there. There's so many settings in the game, but I certainly haven't seen one, and it's something that I do look for. Okay, that's one that's one little gripe that I've got. I'll go through the things that I hope that get addressed. That shouldn't be that difficult to change as well. But the big changes in here now, when we do come into this, is we now actually have like a different way of retrofitting the ships. And that's always been a bit of a micromanagement hell with the way that you have to then manage the way that your ships are then sort of used. Now, it goes 80% of the way. It doesn't quite go to the full, as far as I would like it to go, but it goes a long way along. And so if we have a look at this one here, if we go to the ship constructions in through this side, we go to the ship designs, and I think what I'll do is I'll just isolate it by state ships to start with, so we can sort of talk about it. And I can talk about the problem. I'll just sort by role, and you can see through here that we've got like 3 different types of escorts. There is still a bug in this. It's only a minor bug. It's just it's an information bug, not an actual execution bug, if that makes any sort of sense. And so we've got 3 different types of escorts. We've got the Li Tong, the Mandalay, and the Vung Tau are the 3 different types of escorts we have, and they've got 3 different classes of hull. Now this is interesting. They've actually now put the hull type as a column as well, which is really, really cool. And so we can now see we've got escort, patrol escort, and heavy escort. And so this is the listing now of the different hulls for the escort itself. And so when we have a look at, for example, the Mandalay, and go and click on that one and edit it, what we'll find is there's a new area over here which allows us to then upgrade to a specific type of hull. And so with this one here, if we say, okay, I want to be using the latest design for the patrol escort hull, so the latest design for the hull. This should be the default, but it's actually not the default. Once you change it once, it does just stick, but you've got to then go and change it all the way across. But I think that this is a better default. It means that you can then have nuance within the hull types, but unfortunately, you've got hull, which means this would be all the patrol escorts. You can see there for the role, it wants to go back to the Li Tong 2, and so this is actually just going through to any of the latest, whatever the latest escort design is, it will just upgrade to that. And then the latest design for the largest hull for the role. And so this one here allows you then to sort of set up, for example, in the early part of the game, that may be a good way to go, so that you end up with like a basic escort type role. And then when you get the heavy escorts eventually, it will then go, okay, I've now got a new design for a heavy escort. This is the role for this is fairly general. It should be upgraded to that bigger role. So latest design for the largest hull for the role. And so that basically means go back to a heavy escort role, hull, and whatever the latest design for that is, use that particular one. So there's certainly a lot of change in here. The one thing that's missing for me is if you need nuance within the same hull type. Like for example, if I've got like two different types of patrol escorts, one that uses long-range missiles, and so it sort of is like a more of a standoff type ship, and one that uses railguns, for example, and is designed to go in really close to the enemy and sort of take the fight to them. And I'm using both of those in different sorts of fleets or whatever else it might actually be. I would tend to name them a different class of escort, but still use the same hull. And I really wish there was one above all of this, latest design for class name. That for me would be ideal, because it means we could then have multiple retrofit paths within the same hull type, but based on whatever the name is. And in this case, the Mandalay would be the classification or the design class. So the design class would be Mandalay. This is a Mandalay version 2, but the Mandalay would then just sort of stick along that particular role. And you'll notice that I can actually specify exactly which design it should be retrofitting up to, like with the other two types of escorts, but not the actual class name itself. For me, that's an important change that should come, I hope, because that then does allow you to have the nuance. Where this one falls apart a little bit is, if I just save and exit that one through there, if I go to the frigates, I've only got one frigate design at the moment because we don't have those extra frigate hull types yet. And so quite often I would be having two different types of frigates using the same hull, but I've only really got one way of actually upgrading the Sumatra, for example. If I go into edit this one and then just go across into looking at what it can then do, it can only upgrade to itself. I can't use a new name to have the upgrade. It will always go to whatever the latest version actually is. So it doesn't quite go to where I would want it to be. So that's, but it's certainly on the way. Now another thing where the game is a little bit broken, other designs that upgrade to this design, it's got the Sumatra in this case, which is fine. So that's the actual, that's one of the designs that is using this particular one. If I cancel that one and just go back out into my, for example, the Lee Tong, and then go and edit this one. And so the latest design for the hull is the Lee Tong. It should be upgrading to this particular one, but if I go back across, if I just cancel this, actually it may not be as bad as I think it is. Yeah, no, these are the old versions. The old versions by default were using the latest design for the largest hull for the role, and so they were actually designed to other designs that upgrade to this design, and it's got the old versions that are then coming back through. But yes, maybe it's not a bug. That may be the way it's supposed to be working, because these are active designs essentially that we've got, that we've if we save and exit, that we sort of see in through there. And so the way that you would then sort of work with this is that you would then essentially go and think, okay, look, if I wanted to control the actual build of a particular type of ship, I could then sort of stop this particular hull upgrade from being done by the AI. I can also globally tell it to just turn off all of the ship designs as well, which I don't think I didn't notice this one here. It's probably been there forever. I just haven't noticed it. So anyway, that's a fairly big change. That's to say 80% of the way I would like it to go, but not quite 100%. All right, that's about all we have to really talk about in here. Yeah, I think it's sorry, there is another one as well. If we go back to the, let's have a look at, for example, the civilian bases, just as an example. You'll notice that there's a naming of the MS2. There's two MS2s now. In the old game, before this version, there was only ever one. It was whatever the latest of the mining stations actually was. But now we have two different hull types. Well, I think we've always had them, but it was always upgrading to the next biggest version. And so this one here, we've got a small mining station and a large mining station. I love this because it means that we can actually then have like a very poorly designed grunt work type mining station, just using the small mining station hull if we needed to, and then actually have like a larger mining station with decked out with weaponry and whatever else we want for the Caslon supply or anything that's important. That way we sort of have like a limited number of resources to build, like the almost like a mining outpost, whereas the full-on mining stations would then sort of be take a lot more effort to construct. I love that this is actually sort of now part of what we can then do with the game. And again, we can go into these, and I just wish it was actually AMS-S and MS-. hyphen L, so we had a designation between large and small. But of course, you can just go back in and rename these if you wanted to. You can just go in and edit them. So click quickly edit. Do we have any of these? Actually, I don't know if we do. So so this one here is upgrading to the largest hull. That's the default. So I'm changing and saying, okay, if we've got a small mining station, I've made it a small mining station for a reason. Like after we sort of get to where we've got like the like beyond the first part of the game, once we've sort of got like where we need to go, we can then specify what we require. But again, it would be much more useful to be able to then just go in and sort of have like a different sort of designation. So I'll just do that one there. This will be sort of like the small. Just press enter, and then I can save and exit that one. And yeah, so that would be basically the small designation. But we could ultimately this will allow us a lot more nuance with the way that we actually then play the game. Anyway, guys, I think I'll leave it here. I don't want this to go for very long. I just wanted to sort of show what was in the game now, which is very exciting. The big one is the workshop support. That's really the impetus and the reason that I wanted to put this this particular video together. But also the retrofitting has certainly had a lot of attention over the last, well, basically over the last month or so, really. So it's very cool to see what's actually coming for the game. Thanks for watching. Oh, by the way, special thank you to my supporters, whether you be Patreon supporters, whether you're sort of buying merchandise, whether you're liking and subscribing, anything at all. It certainly does help the channel. So thank you for that, guys. And I'll catch you next time. Oh, I forgot to tell you how you can get your random seed really easily. You just press escape. There it is there. You can't copy it, which is funny, but it does show it. So when you're in the middle of a game, there's your random seed. You can now just sort of write that number down and then use that to then go back to, for example, go back to the main menu. So if I had 7260217, 7260217, if I go to start new game, 7260217. I don't know if that's right. Anyway, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But that would be where you'd sort of then go and add that one in. You just go down to your Galaxy settings. These are just rounded out where we've got these other different bits and pieces. You would then go down to off with this one in through here, and then just go and change and think, okay, look, I do need to have some more Boscarans back in through here, but we don't want them expanding, we just want them as young or something like this. So you can sort of then just go through and just change a few of your settings back in through here, for example, to then just tweak the way that the Empire or the Galaxy would then be then structured. So you would then start the game using the same seed. So you've sort of got the same Galaxy seed, but with different empires now. There we go, Harkonish Syndicate. Just going back in through that one. Actually, we started off in a different part of the galaxy, but anyway, that's that does actually. So I guess when you change those parameters, you are changing the random seed to a degree as well. But anyway, it's cool the way it does work. God, I wish this would pause by default. Anyway, guys, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.